Luka Doncic has been called a magician, a scoring machine, and the most gifted offensive guard in the league, but none of those labels explain what is happening right now. For years, coaches whispered the same thing about him. He was unstoppable with the ball, but a weakness on the other end. Every scouting report said the same sentence: attack Luka and you tilt the matchup, but this season, something flipped. He is still putting up outrageous numbers on offense, but the shocking part is that his biggest weakness suddenly turned into a strength. It was not supposed to happen. It was not supposed to be possible. Yet the deeper we look into the transformation, the more it becomes obvious that the league was never prepared for this version of Luka. The version that is stronger, faster, sharper, and for the first time in his career, defending like his reputation depends on it. And once you understand how he made this change, you start to see why the rest of the league is worried, why analysts are confused, and why stopping this new type of superstar may now be impossible. Everything about Luka Doncic used to be predictable. Teams built their entire game plan around attacking him. They ran him through screens, forced switches, and hunted him every possession until his legs were gone. The 2024 playoffs were the most brutal example. Boston sent waves of athletes at him, drove straight at his chest, and made him defend actions he had never experienced at that volume. Luka was battling injuries, carrying the entire offense, and simply did not have the conditioning to survive 40-minute nights while also guarding elite scorers. He looked exhausted by halftime, and the Celtics knew it. They did not care how many points he scored. They cared about the imbalance they could create by exposing his defense. Everyone believed that this flaw was permanent. Observers said that Luka was too heavy to guard quick guards, too slow to navigate screens, too tired to compete in long series, and too set in his game to change. That was the narrative, that was the label, and no one expected him to challenge it. But something changed when the season ended. It was not a small adjustment, not a minor shift, but a complete identity rebuild that no one saw coming. Nico Harrison made comments about Luka's conditioning that spread across social media. The jokes about his weight never stopped, and somewhere inside all that noise, Luka decided he was done hearing it. He trained with a level of intensity he had never shown in previous off seasons. He cut weight, reshaped his body, focused on footwork instead of brute strength, and built a conditioning base that finally allowed him to defend for full stretches. Teammates noticed he was moving differently. Coaches noticed he recovered quicker. Trainers saw that he stayed after practices working on defensive slides, recovery steps, and short area burst. The transformation was not just physical, it was mental. Luka wanted to prove that he could fix the flaw everyone used against him. He wanted to prove that skill was not the only thing he possessed. He wanted to show that greatness comes from the parts of the game people never see, and he wanted to change the way teams treated him. In a league filled with stars who rely on their talent alone, Luka chose to rebuild everything. The result of that offseason was visible almost immediately. Early in the year, clips of Luka defending began circulating online, and fans could not believe what they were watching. He stayed in front of Steph, cut off his angles, and contested his step back instead of reaching out of position. Against Milwaukee, he bumped drivers off their line, slid to contain Giannis, put a hand in his face on a difficult fadeaway, and even stripped the ball from him on a drive. These were plays Luka did not make in the past. He used to play defense like someone trying to survive possessions. Now he was dictating them. In Eurobasket, he averaged 2.7 steals per game and was nominated for Best Defender of the tournament, which was unthinkable only a few years ago. The shift was not a highlight reel trick. It was effort, technique, and pride. Luka was finally approaching both sides of the game with the same fire he had always shown on offense. And once that became clear, everything about the Lakers suddenly changed. Because if Luka was no longer a liability on defense, then every lineup, every matchup, every scheme became far more dangerous. The first real moment that forced the league to reevaluate Luka came against the Spurs. His stat line looked normal for him, with 35, 13, and 9, but the defensive performance stole the night. 5 steals and 2 blocks are rare numbers even for elite defenders. But this was Luka blocking drives at the rim, jumping passing lanes with anticipation, and forcing turnovers that changed the momentum of the game. Analysts dismissed it as a one-game burst, but the tone around his game had shifted. For the first time, players talked about Luka's defense with respect. Commentators noted his engagement. Coaches praised his focus on rotations. What made the night terrifying for opponents was that Luka put up a superstar offensive performance while also winning possessions on defense. It is one thing to survive on the defensive end, it is another to impact games there. Luka was finally doing both, and the league had no blueprint for that version of him. The player who once got targeted became the player altering outcomes. As the numbers piled up, the narrative became impossible to ignore. Luka averaged 1.9 steals a game, a career high. His stocks climbed to 2.4. His defensive box plus minus ranked in the 68th percentile, far above what anyone expected. And while he was never going to be a rim protector, his defensive versatility finally showed up in analytics. He was creating deflections, challenging drives without fouling, navigating screens with intent, and making smart rotations. His defensive presence started to resemble the impact Jimmy Butler brings, not because of athleticism, but because of IQ, positioning, and timing. A Luka who dominates on offense is already a nightmare. A Luka who adds genuine defensive value creates a matchup that teams simply cannot solve. When players in the league talk about stars who can take control of both sides of the ball, they mention Giannis, Kawhi, Anthony Davis, and occasionally Jimmy. But this year, Luka's name began entering those conversations, and that alone signals a shift in the hierarchy of the league. But even as Luka's defense improved, his offense ascended to an all-time level. He scored over 200 points in his first 5 games, matching Wilt Chamberlain. He became the only player ever to record over 200 points, 25 plus rebounds, and 25 plus assists in that span. His rim finishing jumped to over 95%. A number that does not make sense for a guard, especially not one who was once criticized for being slow. He started averaging 12.5 free throw attempts, showing how his improved burst allowed him to pressure the rim instead of settling for step backs. He attacked with purpose, not fatigue. The weight loss created a new version of Luka who could get downhill at will, take hits, recover, and continue pushing the pace. His decision-making improved because his conditioning let him think clearly late in games. His numbers were no longer just impressive, they were historical. And when you combine a historic offensive engine with a new defensive identity, you get something the league hoped it would never have to deal with: a complete Luka Doncic. This transformation also changed one of the most important questions surrounding the Lakers. How would Luka fit with LeBron James' rumors all offseason suggested tension? People speculated LeBron did not want to give up control, that he disliked how the franchise centered every decision around Luka, and that the chemistry might fail. But the first games told a different story. LeBron's shot attempts dropped, but his assists spiked, with a game where he took only 7 shots but delivered 12 assists. He ran the offense like he wanted Luka to shine. He celebrated every big play from his teammates. He embraced a role that looked less like a superstar and more like a facilitator who wanted to win above everything. This version of LeBron is terrifying for opponents because he no longer tries to be the hero. He lets Luka cook and then punishes defenses with perfect reads. The fit was never about ego, it was about roles. And with both players comfortable, the Lakers suddenly became one of the most flexible offensive teams in the league. The final question is simple: will this new version of Luka be enough to win an MVP or a championship? The MVP race is crowded with Nikola Jokic putting up numbers that look fake, and Shai leading a Thunder team that sits at 14-1. Luka is third in most betting models and faces stiff competition, but a championship is realistic. The Lakers have depth, defensive versatility, shooting, and multiple players who can contribute without needing the ball. LeBron's willingness to adapt gives the team structure. Luka's two-way improvement gives them balance. The entire roster is built to maximize his strengths and cover weaknesses that no longer seem as problematic. Luka already showed in the 2024 playoffs that he can beat the best players in the world head-to-head. And now, with a new identity and a fully optimized team, the Lakers have a clear path to the 2026 title. Luka is not just trying to win games, he is trying to prove he is the best player alive. And based on everything we have seen, he is closer than ever. So here we are, watching a version of Luka Doncic that the league hoped it would never see. A player who fixed the one flaw that held him back. A player who now controls games from both ends of the floor. A player who lost weight, gained speed, sharpened his defense, amplified his offense, and forced every team in the league to rethink their matchups. A player who is pushing the Lakers toward a real title run. And as the season progresses, the only real question left is simple. If Luka keeps playing like this, who is going to stop him? Because the truth is that the new era the NBA feared might already be here. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit like if you want more deep breakdowns, and subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth behind the headlines. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next upload.